Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. We cover a lot of games on this channel, from a lot of different genres, but there's one genre I haven't talked about yet. MMOs, aka massively multiplayer online games. That's not to say I haven't played any. I've actually got hundreds of hours in several different games, ranging from Lord of the Rings Online, to Guild Wars 1 and 2, to The Secret World. So, when Tencent asked me to give their MMO Tarisland a look, and said they would sponsor the results, despite my numerous warnings that I wasn't going to go easy on them, I was happy to agree. So a quick shout out to Tencent for sponsoring today's video. However, for those of you familiar with this series, you already know what's coming. And for those of you who aren't, let me make sure we're all on the same page. I'll be setting up timestamps throughout the video so you can skip around as needed, but here's the plan for today. First, I'm going to try and give a general overview of Tarisland and everything it has to offer. Then we'll go over the things that I enjoyed about it, and then I'll go over the things I disliked and what we can learn from the mistakes made by the game, because there's always something to be learned. So with that in mind, we need to talk about Tarisland. Tarisland is an MMO that originally launched in China on June 12th and officially released worldwide on June 21st. The story is centered around the Hollows, a group of people who mysteriously can't remember their past and all have a strange inscribed stone in their possession. Chosen by one of the gods of this world, the Hollows are tasked with saving Tarisland from destruction as the Black Tower looms above, emanating darkness and evil. The story will follow your adventures as you attempt to unravel what the Black Tower is and how to stop it before it corrupts Tarisland and all that live there. And all along the way, you'll meet a large cast of characters, ranging from the Beastman Lorne and his troubled tribe, to the royals of the Silverlit capital who are besieged by corruption, all the way to Blackgun. Great day for fishing, ain't it? Follow the clues, grow in strength, and save Tarisland from the slowly growing evil. Simple enough. Moving right along, let's talk about the most important part of any MMO, the classes. You've got 9 classes to choose from. You've got the Warrior, Barbarian Fighter, Mage, Paladin, Priest, Shadow Swordsman, Ranger, Phantom Necro, and Bard. Each class brings their own strengths and weaknesses to the table, which the game clearly dictates. Some classes are good at tanking, others are designed for damage dealing, and the others are designed for healing. However, each class is also divided into 2 specializations. For example, the Bard can either focus on dealing damage or healing, while the Mage can specialize into ice or fire magic. Each specialization has its own uses, which makes it a bit easier for players to pick their favorite class while still fitting the needs of their party. As you progress through the game, you'll level up, granting you skill points and additional actions. These skill points can be put into your skill tree, helping you to create a character that suits your playstyle. For example, my Bard became an absolute bruiser, dealing additional damage every time I used my favorite combo of notes. I built him in such a way that he can play 2 aggressive notes, play a chord that then gives me a buff that increases my overall damage for a few seconds, then use a combination of aggressive and lingering notes to bang out an even stronger chord before resetting the cycle. Combine that with a complete disregard for my health stat while I pumped all my points into intelligence to boost my damage, and you've got a Bard that can take down raid bosses all by himself. Theoretically. And yes, I'm aware of the irony that picking intelligence in this instance was the least intelligent thing I could have done. But as stated, each character has 2 separate playstyles, which means you have 2 separate skill trees to put into. Thankfully, any points you've placed in one tree can be put into the other simultaneously, so you'll never have to redistribute points from one to the other. Also, it's worth noting that points can be reallocated for free anytime you're not in combat, so if a build isn't working, you can try another without being punished. You can also upgrade your inscribed stone, allowing you to focus on certain stats and abilities and further customize your character to your playstyle. And of course, it wouldn't be an MMO without professions. You can choose to be a jeweler who works with gems and makes rings, necklaces, and accessories, a tailor who crafts light armor and backpacks, an alchemist who creates potions and runes, or a blacksmith at the forge who makes heavy armor and bombs. As you progress in your profession, you'll be able to specialize in that as well. Each specialization has its own perks, so if you're in a guild, you'll want to coordinate with your teammates to really get the most out of production. Because unlike other MMOs I've played, the crafting system in Tarisland costs energy. It takes 1 energy to collect a resource, and a specific amount of energy to craft an item. Energy replenishes throughout the day, or can be regained with stamina potions, but there's no better way to optimize energy spending and maximize profits than a well-organized team. And like most MMOs, crafting the more advanced products in the game is going to require collaboration with other professions. So for example, if you wanted to, craft a backpack full of bombs, you'll need to forge yourself some copper bars and get some gems from a jeweler. Or you can do like I did and sell all of your ore on the marketplace, then use your earnings to buy bombs direct. The marketplace seems relatively straightforward, with players buying and listing objects, and the marketplace taking a cut for each listing. But in order to play the market, you're going to need some silver, which brings us to the quests. Quests are exactly what you expect. A block of text giving you background and lore, a single sentence summary for those who don't want to read, and quest rewards listed at the bottom. Quests range from go kill X number of enemies or collect X number of items, to solving puzzles, to engaging with the different systems of the game as you explore the world around you. The world itself is decently large, with several areas to visit that will unlock as your level increases. The game also actively rewards you for exploring and engaging with the world around you, giving rewards for collecting lore, finding hidden collectibles, taking photos, unlocking teleportation stones, or catching every type of fish. But if you're the type of player who would rather just go from mission to mission, the game has several ways to help you along. There's a mount system, which is given to players extremely early in the story, and there's a glowing path system that will show you the way to your next objective if you're having trouble navigating. There's also an auto path system, but it only unlocks if you have enough reputation. Reputation can be gained by completing quests, as well as through a number of events found around the world, like healing sick soldiers, fending off enemy hordes, or playing a barrel version of the shell minigame. And if none of that appeals to you because you're all about tackling the hardest content you can find, then you'll be focused on the large collection of raids, bosses, and challenge modes. Raids are pretty much what you'd expect from an MMO. Enter a dungeon with a team of 5 or 10 players, clear out the rooms, traps, and mini-bosses along the way until you reach the raid boss at the end. Beat the boss, and you'll get some loot that improves your build. Once you've done that, do it again, but this time on elite difficulty, so as to get even better loot. And if that's not enough, tack on a few extra challenges to make the raid even harder, giving you the best possible treasure. And bragging rights. Or, if you're like me and don't really play well with others, there's the Universal Haul. Think of it as a 1v1 against a raid boss, which also lets you tack on harder and harder challenges to get those better and better rewards. And if none of that fits your playstyle, there's always PvP. There's 1v1 PvP, as well as a battleground mode, where teams of players fight across a large map, using map set pieces to give themselves an advantage and complete objectives. I wish I could say more on this, but unfortunately the battlegrounds are only open at certain times of the day and week, none of which fell into my time of recording. So you'll have to look elsewhere for more information if PvP is your bag. Now, one thing that Tarisland is doing to separate itself from most MMOs is introducing a mobile client for the game. From my understanding, you can play Tarisland on PC, then continue exactly where you left off on your phone. Same account and everything. Again, I wasn't able to test this feature, since I physically can't play mobile games, so if that interests you, you'll have to look elsewhere on the internet for more information. What? Do you know how hard it is to play mobile games without fingers? I literally have to use T9 to text. Don't get me started. And lastly, we need to talk about the Battle Pass system, the event system, and the storefront. In regards to the Battle Pass, there's an exhaustive achievement list that covers every gameplay type Tarisland has to offer. Complete an achievement, and you'll get Battle Pass XP. The more achievements you do in a season, the further down the Battle Pass you get. You also get rewards for doing the achievements themselves, so you'll be drowning in rewards if you're able to complete them. As for events, there's several. You've got your typical login event, where you can get rewards for logging in multiple days, the Leisure Time event, which has its own list of achievements that can be traded in for their own rewards, and a good old invitation system, where referring a friend to Tarisland gets you some free loot. No, you can't have my code, go get your own! As for the store, it's more or less what you expect to see these days when it comes to video game microtransactions. There are a dizzying number of currencies, but they can all technically be obtained in-game. Basic items will cost silver, which you can get in large quantities just from playing the game normally. More valuable items can be bought with gold, which can be acquired by putting up listings in the marketplace. And skins, pets, and other rare items can be bought with crystals, which can either be bought with gold or with the MMO staple, cold hard capitalism. There's also a currency you get from playing PvP, a currency you get from doing dungeons, a currency you can only get when clearing dungeons with a guild, and a loot box system. So if you want certain items in the store, you're gonna need to engage with the game on several different levels. For example, if you wanted to obtain the Heart of Luin set, you'll need Stones of Prayer, which can be unlocked through certain rewards or bought with silver if your reputation is high enough, but otherwise must be bought with crystals. Assuming that it takes you several tries to unlock it via the loot box system, Tarisland has a secondary pity system where you gain Arcs of Destiny for every duplicate you get from loot boxes. You won't be able to use this currency to unlock the Heart of Luin, but you can use it to get the Mesmerizer set instead. And if all of that seems too complicated, there's also the Direct Cash Shop, where you can buy the Shadow's Wrath set straight up. And there you go. That's about as complete an overview as I can give you. I'm sure I've missed a few mechanics and tidbits here and there, but I'm only one man. And with that being said, let's talk about what this one man liked about the game. Let's start at the beginning. First off, I really like the visual introduction of each class. It's flashy, but visually effective and good at making sure you get the vibe of each character. As far as the character creator goes, it isn't overly complicated or deep, but I'd argue it works fine enough. Moving on into the tutorial, you can actually skip the whole thing by clicking this button here. So if you're like me and made 5 different characters, this button here is a godsend. Not only that, but you can skip through all the cutscenes as well, either scene by scene or in their entirety. Again, a godsend for any of my fellow Altaholics. Once I was actually playing the game, I really appreciated the fact that I could scroll out as far as I liked, since I come from a Guild Wars 1 background and I'm used to focusing on battlefield analysis rather than individual character actions. I also appreciate how Tarisland lets me customize the information on screen, giving me as much or as little visual clutter as I liked. Oh, thank God I can hide world chat. In regards to movement, travel felt pretty zippy. The game gives you unlimited sprint outside of combat, a decent number of fast travel locations in each area, and a virtually free mount very early in the game, so getting from A to B never felt tedious. Moving on to the nitty-gritty mechanics, I did like how you can redistribute your skill points for free, and that you don't have to divide your points between the 2 different specializations. There's nothing worse than wanting to account for every possible scenario, spreading yourself too thin, and then being able to account for none of them. Also, when I tried my hand briefly at being a healer, I was pleasantly surprised that the game gave me a DPS meter and a health bar management tool. I'm used to playing MMOs that require you to download a third-party tool for that kind of thing, so yeah, felt good to skip a step. To be fair though, most of the MMOs I play are from the early 2000s, so maybe that's just a me thing. And lastly, and this is definitely a me thing, but this little button right here, excellent. Put this in every game. The less time I have to spend going to a wiki to figure out where to get those 75 dragon butts I need for a quest, the better. But unfortunately, that's about all I've got for things I liked. In fairness, there was plenty about the game that I felt neutral about, like the art style, the music, that sort of thing. But this wouldn't be a We Need to Talk episode if there wasn't some very broken elements to this game. Time to rip off that band-aid. Hoo boy. Alright, there's a lot to go over here, so please forgive me if my thoughts seem a bit scattered. So the first thing I noticed, the very first thing after the introduction started, was the voice acting.
Time for the duel! Dear all, the Blight Dragon must be defeated first to safeguard the Silver Lit. Pitch in and give the best shot!
I'll be honest, I thought it was AI generated at first with how stilted some of the deliveries were. Most of the characters sound like they don't understand the words they're saying, and are just reading them off of a page with zero context or coaching as to what it is they're supposed to be portraying. Not only that, but the voice acting doesn't always match up with the text on the bottom of the screen. Clearly a translation problem, which is to be expected when taking a game from one side of the world to the other. But here's the thing. Aside from not knowing which is more lore accurate, the voice acting or the text, it doesn't really matter in the end, because more often than not, you're not going to have enough time to absorb it. Here, it's better if I just show you.
The owner of the inscribed stone, you are finally here, O Eternal Sovereign.
For the record, I did not press any buttons. That's just the way the scene plays out, and it happens a lot. After pondering it for a bit, I think I know why. The animations and scenes were clearly designed for their original Chinese voice acting. Makes sense. But when the English voice acting was added, it appears that someone forgot to account for the fact that when you say something in English instead of Chinese, it might take a bit longer to say. And unless your voice actors have been given the scene ahead of time, they don't know how long they have to say their lines, let alone how to line up their voices with the animations. Overall, it's clear that some very sharp corners were being cut here. There are some scenes where only one voice line exists, which means that my character has a 50% chance of being addressed incorrectly.
He lost his memories. All he has is a strange stone to go on.
Despite the loss of memory, he is well trained and surprisingly strong.
Multiple scenes that reuse the same voice line.
Moon! 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 Moon!
And some scenes that literally have no voice line at all. I swear I'm trying to pay attention to the story. I want to give this a fair shot, but between the rapid-fire scene changes and the translation issues, I just can't get engaged. Here, look, this is the princess's brother. There were several lines explaining this fact literally 10 seconds ago. Why does he say this?
Distinguished guests from afar, my daughter is young.
Please be a translation problem. Please be a translation problem. Please be a translation. All things considered, Tarisland probably would have been better off leaving in the original Chinese voice acting and doubling its efforts on the text translation instead. Because unfortunately, the translation errors don't stop with the voice acting. Not only are certain menus and phrases worded oddly, like the character select button, but again, it appears that someone forgot that the English language is a lot longer to write out than Chinese, which gives you things like these text box errors when walking past NPCs, or situations like this, when you're making dialogue decisions and your choices are cut off most of the time. At first, I just assumed that my character was getting interrupted, but after taking a test about being a healer in a party, it became clear that that wasn't the case. Thankfully, this doesn't seem to be a problem in the quest descriptions, so I know Tarisland is capable of making it work. But this really should have been caught by QA or beta testers. Okay, so the story is scuffed and the translation needs work. But if you're a hardcore MMO player, do you really care about the story? I mean, it's all about gear and raids, right? Well, oversimplified strawman that I made up for the sake of convenience. It's funny you should ask, because I got some gripes about all that too. Let's start with the smaller of the two problems, the raids. I will happily concede that I did, in fact, have fun doing the raids. But as I loaded up my third raid, I started to feel like something was off. And by my fourth, I figured out what that was. Tarisland wants you to win. Here, hold on, let me show you what I mean. Rather than expecting players to experiment and figure out raids on their own, Tarisland instead opts to include an in-game wiki, complete with raid boss movesets and counters, before every raid. What's that? You didn't read the wiki because you're a full-time gamer and you don't take handouts? How about we prompt you with on-screen text just in case you can't figure it out? And don't worry, we know it's not easy to read when you're busy dodging a boss's ultimate attack, so we'll yell the instructions in your ear as well.
Dodge, rescue teammates, stage change, step on the small spiders, attack minions.
Again, this feels weird to me, and I don't like it. Raids are supposed to be a challenge, a test of your skills as both an individual and a group. This is one of the few times where it's widely accepted that it is the game versus the players, and the game isn't supposed to hold back. But here, Tarisland is handing you the cheat sheet to the test, then looking over your shoulder while you take it and pointing out all the right answers. And this isn't just a learning tool. I took on an elite dungeon, and the exact same prompts were on my screen. The training wheels never come off. Now, while I'd argue this isn't great game design, it's not the end of the world. And besides, the point of raids is to get that sweet, sweet loot. So let's talk about the loot. Think of your favorite MMO. Now think about that feeling you get when you find a new weapon, cape, or helmet. It's exciting, right? Your numbers go up, you get a new look, and sometimes you even get to brag about how that cool new cape you're wearing dropped from a random enemy you just happened to be grinding. In Tarisland, loot comes from completing quests or from crafting. That's it. Grinding out mobs in the overworld won't net you new gear, nor will it give you crafting materials. Hell, it won't even give you XP. That's right, enemies don't give XP. Unless you're doing a quest, there's literally no reason to attack an enemy mob. They all scale to your level, and unless you have a quest that says otherwise, they don't drop anything. They're just speed bumps as you travel from A to B. But okay, ignoring that alarming tangent, let's say you complete a quest. You get your loot, and hey, look at that. It's got bigger numbers. It's a good day. You equip it as quickly as you can, and nothing changes. Well, okay, that's not true. Your numbers did go up like they were supposed to, but physically, your character has not changed. And they never will change, because Tarisland doesn't show your new equipment on your character. This baffled me. Character customization is a key pillar of MMOs. If I beat the hardest boss in the game and get the super rare Helmet of Doom with glowing red eyes, you know I'm gonna wear that thing around town so everyone can see my accomplishment. How am I supposed to let everyone know how cool I am? Oh, right. Yeah, that checks out. This also means that your character will forever and always use the same weapon type that they started with. A paladin will always smash things with a hammer, a ranger will always shoot things with a bow, and my bard will never not play a harp, shattering his lifelong dream of getting a saxophone or saxophone equivalent. Okay, well, every class may all be using the same weapon, but at least every player has a different build, right? Well, everyone has the same skills, and I mean the exact same skills. My bard and your bard will learn the same things at the same levels, and the only difference between us will be which ultimates we choose and what skill points we put where. It's the same problem as the loot. Technically, yes, the numbers are going to be different, and our bards will play slightly different based on our choices. But realistically speaking, when it's all said and done, you have two options. A bard that deals damage, or a bard that heals. And if you think that players aren't going to immediately optimize those two builds, especially with such limited choices, you haven't seen what MMO players are capable of. Okay, I have so much more to talk about, but this is already going on too long, so we're just going to do a lightning round. Hopefully the developers are taking notes. The minimap, please make this better. It's too zoomed in to be useful, and having it update every other second instead of following the player smoothly is probably the wrong choice. Character names. I don't think this is intentional, but you can't reuse a deleted character's name. The Backlogs no longer exists, but unless someone swiped my name for me in the 2 minutes it took me to re-roll a new class, it appears that the server isn't recording what names are currently in use, just which ones have been made. That needs to be fixed yesterday. Unless you want a bunch of characters with names like 360 XX Just Blaze XX 420 running around. Puzzles. The puzzles are not good. You've got a wide selection, like searching glowing piles for a particular object or rotating mirrors to reflect light, but this isn't a puzzle. This is just mashing the F key until the thing in front of you lights up and prompts you to find the next station. I'm willing to give a little leeway on this one, since I'm a bit spoiled by the investigation missions from the secret world, but still, a fail state would be nice. Enemy targeting. The game lets you tab target enemies, or you can just press a skill button and the game will auto-target the closest enemy or the most important enemy, depending on what you chose in your settings. But if you're like me and want to click on your targets, you might notice that it feels a bit off. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something feels weird about it. And the fact that enemies clip into one another isn't helping. In fact, can we fix the clipping in general? I know the shell game is well known for being used by tricksters and con men, but it's not exactly fair when the barrels clip inside one another. And yes, I did give up and start reading my mail halfway through the game just to pick the correct barrel anyway. Because I'm a gamer. Class tutorials. They look like they were shot with fraps back in 2003. No further comment needed. The world. It's big and it's pretty, but it feels empty. Like butter scraped over too much bread. There's bursts of activities here and there, but because the mobs around the map don't drop items or experience, they might as well be rocks and trees. And considering a majority of the NPCs are in the cities, there's really no reason to explore the world unless you're zipping between quests or going out of your way to find collectibles. Marketplace quantities. I have dozens of ore to sell, but I can only add them into the listing one at a time. Please add a different quantity button, my clicking finger hurts. But hey, despite all these problems, at least there's still firebombs. Okay, we're done here. MMOs are a strange genre. They aren't just games, they're living worlds, where players can spend days, months, or even years engaging in a community of like-minded individuals who love the game just as much as they do. It's a hard genre to break into. Most MMO players have already found their home, and in order to lure them to new pastures, you need something greater than the community they've already cultivated. Tarisland isn't going to be able to do that. Not in its current state, because even if all the translation issues get fixed, the story beats ironed out, and the finer details tuned just right, it's still too simple. If you asked me to describe Tarisland in one sentence, I'd tell you that it's baby's first MMO. If you've never played an MMO before, or if the idea of a more seasoned MMO out there feels too hard to tackle because of how overly complicated it's become, then Tarisland, if they fix all the issues I've mentioned so far, will be a great starting point. But if you've played an MMO before and are simply looking for a new game to scratch that itch, this isn't it. Because in the end, the answers are all handed to you. The danger that the game tells you is lurking around every corner doesn't exist. You won't fail, because Tarisland is hovering over your shoulder like an overbearing helicopter parent, feeding you the solutions and making sure that despite the overwhelming odds, your health will not go down unless the game wants it to. The player will be victorious in the end, because Tarisland has deemed it so. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather fail than be given a victory that I didn't earn. Thank you all for watching, and a big thanks again to Tencent for sponsoring this video. Hopefully they take my video as the constructive criticism I mean it to be, and not a personal attack. If you're still interested in giving Tarisland a try, it is free to play, and you can use the link in the description and pinned comment down below to give it a try. And remember, if you invite some friends, you can get a rare mount for free. Did I do the thing? We good? Alright, we're good. With that said and done, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.